Welcome to the Indiana Basketball Weekly Show on the Grueling Truth Sports Network. I'm your host for Indiana Basketball Weekly, Mike Goodpaster. Right now, I would like to welcome to the show Kent Sterling. How you doing, Kent?
You know what? What are you going to do? I could be despondent. I could be enthusiastic. I can be energetic. I can be somber. It's my choice, right? We just exist in the emotional space that we choose for ourselves. So I'm choosing to be happy right now.
Okay. I'm not really sure what you just said, except for that you're happy right now.
Yeah, and that's the important thing.
Well, I guess. But Indiana. Well, hey, on the bright side, Kentucky is losing by 18 to Florida.
That is sweet. That is a good day. See,
we're
just
already
talk
about that
at the
game?
bright side.
Let's just talk about that game. All right.
Yeah, let's do the Kentucky Sucks podcast.
Yeah. Oh, I would love to do that if you ever want to do it with me. Yeah. Indiana lost a 9-point lead in the second half. They lose to the Wisconsin Badgers 60-56. Wisconsin becomes a partial Big Ten champion. And Indiana clinches 11th place in the Big Ten, which is what they were picked this year, and everybody freaked out about it, but it seems like it was true, Kent. And this is a game where shooting the ball, for the most part, didn't kill them until the end of the game, but it's going to be hard for them to beat anybody when Trace Jackson-Davis is held to 8 field goal attempts and scores 6 points.
Yeah, that's not good. And, I don't know whether this had anything to do with it, but maybe it's just being conditioned. Devontae Green gets off to the good start, and you think, oh, no, right? Because what that does is that converts IU's psychology to be more guard-oriented, and they weren't pounding it into the post, and they were relying on shots that they had made. Then they didn't make them. Devontae tries to be a hero on senior day late. It doesn't work out. And so there you go. But I really think that the game turned when, and this could be just bad luck because offensive rebounds go to the other guy. Every once in a while, that's bad luck. I mean, you can block out really well and still give up offensive rebounds. But there was a sequence with, about 5 minutes left where Micah Potter just went off, right? Got an offensive rebound, made a jumper, then he makes a free throw. Then Race Thompson misses. Pritzl gets the rebound. Davison misses the three. It comes straight off to Potter. He kicks it out back to Davison, who makes a three. And all of a sudden, you've given up 6 second-chance points in that short expanse, and IU loses by 4. You know what? There's no question that Indiana is very challenged offensively, especially from the perimeter. They just don't shoot it very well. But if they play really well doing everything else, they can beat a team like Wisconsin at home, and you can make the argument they should have.
Well, they didn't shoot terrible. I mean, they were 40% from the three-point line.
Yeah, but a lot of that was early, right? They had some early success, and that doesn't, negate that doesn't. I mean, everybody's going to. If you get hot during some point, you're going to get cold during some point. And that's just the way it goes. But they were hot early, and I think they were 4 of 5 at one point from beyond the arc, or 4 of 6, and they finished 6 of 15. So they went cold. They started out hitting almost 60%. They wound up hitting 34.5, and it's not so much their inability to hit threes. To your point, it's their inability to convert buckets down low. I mean, my God, Thompson and Brunk. I would much rather have somebody take a contested three than trust either of those guys down low when they're being bracketed correctly. Minnesota didn't do it because Pitino's a lunkhead. Guard's pretty damn smart. So, they sent a couple of guys at Trace Jackson-Davis and at Thompson and at Brunk. And those guys, with guys hanging off them all over the place, they have a tough time scoring the ball.
Yeah. Rob Finney only plays 21 minutes. Jerome Hunter only plays 13.
Yeah. Yeah, that's I guess that's the senior day thing, right? Where Devontae's going to get the start and Deron does, and I like that.
You do?
I like starting the seniors.
I don't.
Yeah.
I don't.
Oh, those guys, they work damn hard.
No, they don't.
And so put those guys. Oh, sure they do.
No, they don't. If they
even
did,
guys
they would
who
start
we
all
think
year.
Don't work hard, work really, really hard.
If they
Those guys
did,
work
they would
hard
start
365 days a year.
So, you know
Everybody
what?
works hard.
If everybody works hard, why are you going to give them something just because they're seniors when they haven't played well for the majority of the season?
Because that's what you do on senior day. You honor the seniors who've given 4 years of a lot of effort in order to help try to build this program back to where they want it to be. And those guys want it as badly as anybody else. And so I
they
like
didn't want it as
seniors.
bad as Wisconsin.
No, not late. No. And you know, again, you got to get the – and Mark Adams said this during the broadcast on ESPN. You have got to pound the ball against Potter every single possession and see if you can get him fouled out, because that's when the game went sideways. When he came back in the game with 4 fouls, I think there were about 6.5 minutes left. Things got squirrely for Indiana. And I'll tell you this, Archie Miller doesn't get off the hook here. Archie Miller, they were sitting on 14 fouls until, 11 seconds were left? 12 seconds were left? What in the hell are they doing?
He looked completely disorganized.
Yeah.
Because that's what this team is. And I'm sorry, but when you're playing guys just because they're seniors in a game that you have to win to get in the NCAA tournament, I think there's an issue with that culturally. I see other teams do it where they'll put the guy in for a minute, then they take him out and put the guys in that can win him the game. Jerome Hunter is a guy that could have helped win this game. I
am not a giant fan of sticking to a rotation to the point Archie Miller does it. You know, I mean, like that is, and this is a criticism of Crean too, where you knew that at the 15-minute mark, this guy was going to go in for that guy. I'm a much bigger fan of being fluid with rotation, sticking with a hot hand, and Archie Miller seems to be kind of a Crean disciple in that regard, and I don't like it. And I really didn't like, there was a possession for Wisconsin with just under a minute left where I thought, okay, here's where you need to foul. You need to go get these 2 fouls so you're not standing around with your thumb up your ass trying to foul guys and foul them with 15 seconds left because you need to put them on the line. I didn't understand that. You coaches, and you know this better than me, I know, because you've coached much more than I have. But you have got to see the game steps ahead. You know, if you're playing pool, you're laying out the table 5 shots from now. You know, and coaches that do that tend to win, and coaches that live in the moment and don't understand the ramifications of not, managing your foul level at that point, those guys tend to lose close games, and that's what's happened with Indiana.
Yeah, and you've got 3 Wisconsin Badgers that finished the game with 4 fouls.
Yeah.
And those are 3 really important Wisconsin Badgers. Those are the 3 guys that did most of the damage. Those 3 guys scored 43 of the 60 points, and you never saw them attack. And Devontae Green started off great, but once he starts missing, it's time to take him out of the game, because once he starts missing, it usually doesn't come back.
Yeah, 6 of 17 isn't going to get it done. That was overall 3 of 8 from beyond the arc. That's not a good day for him or anybody else. But there was no glory out there today with many of these guys. Race Thompson, 11 rebounds. Nobody else in double figures. Devontae, I don't know when he scored his last field goal, but it had to be in the first half, right? So in the second half, they had real trouble.
He scored no points in the second half.
You just can't have that. Either you're going to play 40 minutes or, like we've always said, you sit your ass down. And, today, you know what? I hadn't even thought of this. But I was thinking, for those guys, it's their last game at Assembly Hall. My ass. It could very easily not be their last game at Assembly Hall. They're probably going to have to play Nebraska on Wednesday. And if they lose that game, there's no path into the NCAA tournament for Indiana. They've got to come back and win on Wednesday.
I think their only path is to win Wednesday and Thursday.
Well, but you could be right. Although who would be, I don't even know at this point. I think it's impossible to say who their Thursday opponent's going to be. But if it's, if it's Penn State, if it's Iowa, they got a shot. They've already beaten them, and so you've got an opportunity.
I don't think they can beat either one of those teams. I don't think they can beat Ohio State. I don't think they can beat Illinois. They're not going to play at Assembly Hall. And when they're not at Assembly Hall, they're terrible.
Well, and, counting on Indiana to do anything good in the Big Ten tournament is, the definition of foolishness. So, I've gone to that event way too many times.
It's not like they've blown Nebraska out twice this year either.
No, but Nebraska, they just suspended 2 kids indefinitely. Like they're reeling. Nebraska right now.
Yeah, but if anybody can figure out how to lose, if anybody can figure out how to lose this game, it's Archie.
Well, but that goes back to, I don't know what it is about playing in the Big Ten tournament, but holy crap, no matter who the coach has been, this has been just a completely miserable experience for Indiana and Indiana fans.
I can give you my opinion of why that is.
Sure.
Because in a tournament setting, one and done, a lot more pressure. Coaching plays a big part of this. And we've got Archie Miller, Tom Crean, Kelvin Sampson, Mike Davis.
Yeah, and Nebraska's lost 15 games in a row. I mean, if Indiana loses to Nebraska,
they're due to win. That's what my dad always say. But Johnny Bench is over his last 12. My dad would be, well, he's due then. That's not going to last. And then invariably, Johnny Bench had hit a dinger. So, yeah, the way it looks right now, the top 4 get buys into the quarterfinals, correct?
Yes.
Okay, so that would be 5, 6. So right now they would play Ohio State. It's going to be Penn State, Ohio State, or Illinois, it looks like, though. Or not Illinois,
yeah, and those
Iowa.
Are all, who knows? Those are going to be tough. It can be to your benefit to play on Wednesday and then play on Thursday. We see that every once in a while. Teams tend to play well that second game. So I don't know. I mean, I'm trying to carve up a path to success here, and that's just nutty.
On the bright side, this probably gives them a 1 seed in the NIT.
Again, 2 years in a row, a top seed in the NIT. That's you put that right on the top of your resume when you're trying to get your next job.
Should they put a banner up?
If they win the NIT, or if they're just the 1
either
seed.
One, if they're 1 seed, or if they win the NIT.
That's no, that's like winning the CBI or the CIT or whatever the hell those crazy tournaments are. Yeah, it's hard to win the NIT. I mean, it's not easy.
Most people
whatever
don't
want
to be there. It's hard to motivate kids to win something that means nothing.
Right. Yeah, Wichita State made that abundantly clear last year with Indiana.
Well, that Wichita State was just better than Indiana anyway last year.
And better coached.
Well, yeah.
Greg Marshall is a lunatic, and I'm glad that Indiana didn't hire him. His wife is crazy with 3 Z's, but you know what? He can coach.
Well, then why wouldn't you want him? He wins.
I don't want crazy. I like coaches at Indiana that I feel like I can respect, and that's the problem.
When's
with
the last
Indiana
time
fans,
we had that?
Well, it's been Dockage. Dan, for those beautiful 7 or 8 games back at the end of 2008.
Yeah, but I don't consider him the coach. I just consider him the guy that was thrown in there to take all the hell from them hiring the wrong guy before him.
Yeah, and that's exactly what he was. And, I think he did a hell of a job. People get critical about it. I don't. I think Dan did a terrific job there in trying to reestablish Indiana as what Indiana is. And not letting a bunch of pampered, fat-ass kids who've got problems, rap sheets at this point that are as long as your arm, dictate policy at Indiana. I applaud Dan and everything that he did during that short period of time when he was the guy who was trying to get the train back on the tracks.
All right, Indiana's net ranking going into today is 51.
Yeah.
I assume it's probably going to drop from there.
You would think, and the Ken Pom rating, I think they were 36, and that's going to go down as well. So and I know that's not a criteria for the committee, but and they finished 9-11. I mean, if you do get into the tournament, good for you, but you've got no business there.
No.
I mean, you can't post a winning record in your conference. And I know also that that's not a criteria with the selection committee, but it still is what it is. And if you can't get that done, I mean, hell's bells. What are you doing?
I think it should be a criteria.
Yeah, I think it'd be a good criteria, and it might mandate that a few more mid-majors get in, and I think that they should.
Yeah,
I mean,
I'm an Indiana fan, but if I'm not an Indiana fan, I would much rather see if they were to lose their conference tournament, Northern Iowa or East Tennessee or Richmond get in.
Yeah, and we talked about Northern Iowa the other day, and exactly what we were talking about came to pass. They get beat by Drake. And so they're likely to get an at-large bid that's going to, take one from, who knows, it could be Indiana, it could be Arizona State, it could be a lot of teams.
Well, I don't think right now they'd be taking it from Indiana because Indiana just had a chance to take it, and Indiana just gave it to Northern Iowa.
Yeah, and I think that it's like learning to win and learning to do what's necessary to win I think it's tough for some kids. And I would point a finger at Justin Smith. Like, he just looks like a kid that goes out and plays, and more often than not, he plays hard. But he doesn't play hard enough, and he doesn't play winning basketball.
How about this? I don't question how hard this team plays. I question whether they play with purpose or not.
Correct. Right. And that's the difference. Exactly. I mean, he missed some defensive rotations. And how big was that lane violation? Yeah. I mean, it looks like a nothing play, right? And it's on a miss from the line. He steps in too quick. They make the second shot. They make the next one. And so they're +1. And that wound up being a big deal in a 4-point game that would have been a 3-point game. And all of a sudden you're shooting to tie it instead of shooting to, do what they did against Illinois. And that's cut a 4 to a 1-point deficit.
Yeah. And when you look at a lot of these teams that are on the bubble, like Virginia is 22-7 now. They're no longer a bubble. They're at 47. There's probably going to be 7 Big East teams now just because of run Providence went on over the last couple weeks.
Yeah.
So, I mean, there's 2 more spots that are gone. I mean, if Xavier beats Butler, I think they're definitely in. They probably are anyways, but you never know. But if they win tonight, that takes another spot. And then you've got teams like Wichita State and Cincinnati who are all sitting around the same, but they're all higher than Indiana. And there's no road wins here. I mean,
right now.
Yeah, with Cincinnati and Wichita State, you have road wins against teams in the top 40.
Yeah,
Indiana doesn't.
Right. If Rutgers beats Purdue today, and they're up by 3 at halftime as we speak right now, if Rutgers gets that win, that's much more impressive, obviously, than an Indiana loss.
Well, especially after Indiana got bludgeoned twice by Purdue.
Yeah, right. And so who do you take? Yeah, do you take Purdue over IU? I would think certainly you do. Do you take Rutgers over IU or over IU? Absolutely.
Rutgers, no doubt. You've got the win against Seton Hall, even though it was early in the season. They've got some big wins. Purdue, I don't think gets in either. I don't think they deserve to.
Well, certainly if they lose to Rutgers, that becomes a tough case. And then, you think what might have been for Indiana if they had won today or beaten Illinois or beaten Maryland in those 1-point loss. They're 10th instead of 11th, and they're playing on Thursday, and they're definitively in the field. But just like last year, when they rose from the dead, right, and won their last 4 regular season games, went into the Big Ten tournament with a chance, if they beat Ohio State, to kind of nudge their way into the field. They didn't get that done either.
Yeah. So, Indian, this is on IU. I mean, the one that was the killer to me is still the being up 7 with like under 2 minutes left against Maryland. Because Maryland is a team that sits, I think, 18 on the net rating. And that's the killer to me. Because that is also when I think this team was pretty much done.
Yeah. Well, and, they keep showing themselves capable, right? And so that's the frustration for me, is watching this team and knowing that they could be better or have better results than they are, but they're just not capable of doing what's necessary to do it. And I don't want to talk about, the women's tournament too much, the Big Ten women's tournament, but yesterday afternoon, I saw IU play fantastic basketball against Rutgers and just whittle them down to nothing toward the end of that game and just beat their ass. And it wasn't a physical beatdown as much as it was a psychological beatdown. And Indiana's men's team is exactly the opposite. Like, you watch them, I don't know who they're mentally tougher than. I can't point to a Big Ten team and say, you know what, they're mentally tougher than this team. They're not.
No, they're not. And they're not as well coached as the Indiana women's team.
I'll tell you what, and I would, if there was a male version of Allie Patberg who could play point guard for the Indiana men's team, Indiana would win. They'd probably have won 5 more games than they won this year. She is absolutely tremendous. She does everything that you would love a point guard to do. She had 20 in the first half yesterday. She talks constantly. She's constantly supportive. She explains stuff. She's constantly checking with Terry,
you mean she's
coach.
A leader? We haven't had one
fantastic.
of those in years.
She is, I'm telling you, she is as effective a leader as maybe I've ever seen in basketball. I've only seen her play like 4 times on TV and once in person. So I'm maybe jumping in, waters that I'm going to have difficulty fighting my way out of. But she is really special and really fun to watch and a culture setter for that women's team that the Indiana men's team just doesn't have.
Yeah, and she dropped, 28 points yesterday. They played a number 1 seed at the tournament, Maryland, today, correct?
Yep. Yeah, and they could win. She's fantastic, and she's got a big grin. I mean, she enjoys playing. She moves her feet on defense. She's smarter than hell. She's just really fun to watch play. I stared at her for the entire 2 hours of the game. I just watched her because it was so much fun to watch her have fun. It was just great.
All right, so my question is this, okay? Terry Marin is the coach, right?
Right.
She became the head coach in 2014, correct?
I think that's right, yeah.
All right. Now, how would you classify, before she got here, the Indiana women's basketball program?
They were upcoming. They had done some things. I can't remember the coach who got himself in trouble and was fired, this guy. But they were getting better. But she has, the recruiting is terrific. Getting Patberg as a transfer from Notre Dame, I think, was a culture changer, and I think that's what Indiana needs with Miller. They need a culture changer, and I don't know that they've recruited.
This is my point, though. With the women's coach at Indiana, her first year she was 15-16. Her second year she was 21 wins. Third year 23. Fourth year 23. Fifth year 21 and won a tournament game. And this year she's won 24. I don't know why people think it takes 3 to 5 years to turn a program around, because you could give me all the Mike Krzyzewskis and how it took him 3 or 4 years.
Yeah.
But I'm sorry. When I look at this, the majority of people are fired by their 4th year if they haven't gotten it done.
Well, and that's what, everybody, Mike DeCourcy, chief among them, he yells at me constantly about the need to be patient. But you need to be patient with a really, really good coach.
Yeah.
You need to make sure you don't hire a mediocre guy and then be patient with that guy. And the people who assess Indiana fans as impatient by saying, they've had 5 head coaches since 2000. So in the last 20 years, they've had 5 head coaches. Well, we stuck with Tom Green for 9. That's patient, baby. And it wasn't impatience that ran Kelvin Sampson out of Bloomington. It was his own arrogance and stupidity that cost him his job. That wasn't a fan-driven thing. So I'm tired of people assessing Indiana fans as somehow impatient. And I'm sorry, but hiring a new coach like Archie Miller, that doesn't restart a clock. Like that, Indiana fans have been Indiana fans since before Archie Miller was born.
Yeah.
All right? He takes the job. That doesn't mean that the clock restarts and all of a sudden we've got to reset ourselves to some kind of attitude of patience that doesn't make any damn sense.
Yeah, I agree. So I think it's time to shit or get off the pot, and you better do it in this tournament, because I'm tired of watching the same thing all the time. And this was my problem with the last loss, when you're like, well, they played really good. But the problem is this: they don't play really good when it matters in the last minute.
No, they don't. And that's got a lot to do with him.
And he looks like he's
you
panicking.
Pointed that out a bunch.
He looks like he's panicking. Just like the fouls today. I mean, really, they were given a foul at 10 seconds where there really probably shouldn't have been one given because he didn't really go after the guy hard enough to foul him hard.
And no whistle blew.
Yeah.
Like, nobody called that foul on
the
the floor.
They bailed Archie's ass out there.
Yeah, they did.
I mean, big time bailed his ass out because his team, they do not play with a sense of purpose, but even more important, they don't play with a sense of urgency.
And there's no, and you've brought this up too, there's no calm to this team when things are a little bit dicey. You know, there's some teams where you can just feel it. They're down 4 with a half minute left, and you can feel that they believe that they're going to win if they execute correctly.
Wisconsin.
Right. They are in Maryland and Illinois. You know, they played well when it mattered, and they play passionate basketball more often than not, and they're well coached. And I'm telling you, the thing that hurts Archie Miller is that there were however many fans, let's say 14,000 fans at Assembly Hall today. I'll bet 12,000 of them with a minute left were saying, you know, we're stuck on 4 team fouls. We got 2 to give. This is a problem. We need to foul immediately. You've got to be able to outcoach the fans if you want to keep your job. And today I didn't think Archie did.
How about this? I believe you had 14,000 fans sitting there with a minute left thinking, oh, shit, we've lost this game.
Yeah, probably. And you can feel that.
Yeah.
You know, there's an aura, and I don't know how that works psychologically. And I think I've told this story before, but I went to the 2003 National League Championship Series, Game 7, between the Marlins and the Cubs, the night after Bartman.
Yeah.
And
you knew when you walked in, you were losing.
There was panic. Like, all you had to do, you walk into Wrigley Field, and you're like, oh, this isn't good. And then I went to Game 7 of the World Series in 2011 between the Cardinals and the Rangers, and I walked in, and it was like the party and celebration had already begun. There was this overwhelming feeling that the Cardinals were going to win that game at Busch Stadium, and I think they won 6-2 behind Carpenter, and off you go. But there's just like this aura that can either carry or doom a team, and it feels like the aura of Indiana basketball right now dooms them.
Yeah, and the thing is, that aura is brought on by, it's just like everybody would talk about the Billy Goat curse or whatever it was with the Cubs.
Right.
It wasn't that. It was the fact that for some reason, when they played, they had it in their mind they weren't going to win. And I don't think any of those players thought they were cursed. It was just like there was always an old shit moment. You know what I mean? Game 4, right. Garvey hits a home run. Oh, shit. Yeah. You know, Lee Smith lets the ball go between his legs. Oh, shit. You know, there was always that moment. Bartman. Oh, shit. Well, the point is this. Teams that are really good, that are good enough to win it all, don't have old shit moments. It would have been like, oh, Bartman dropped the ball. So the shortstop makes the play. We get the next guy out. We get out of the inning.
It is really funny, you know, but during that game, during Game 6 of that NLCS, I'm sitting in the living room watching. I think Julian Ryan were in the kitchen, and whoever was on the broadcast, Joe Buck or whomever, said 5 outs to go, and because there was 1 out in the top of the 8th, and the Marlins were batting. And I told them, I yelled, I said, come on out and watch the collapse. Watch what happens now, you know, because you threw down the out count. And there it was. Like, I don't think it was 3 pitches. And that ball was fouled off toward Bartman down the left field line, and Bartman interfered with it, and off you go. I mean,
how about
you
this
can
one?
just tell.
Even if we go away for the Cubs, the Red Sox, you know, you had 1986 World Series. That Game 7, right. I've interviewed guys that played on that Red Sox team, and they're like, we knew we were going to lose that game. And that's a game where they had to lead 3-0 in like the 4th or 5th inning.
And that's all on John McNamara, right? For not pulling Buckner,
6.
which he had always done.
No, I don't think it was on him for that. I think it was the extra innings of that game when he didn't pull Bob Stanley.
Well, there was that. And Schiraldi, I've talked to guys who've played with Schiraldi and talked to people who've coached Schiraldi, and he's not remembered fondly by many of them. Words I can't use
Yeah, but if you
that
remember
refer to
this,
female anatomy
with
are always attached to Schiraldi.
With Schiraldi, McNamara used him in almost every game of those playoffs and World Series.
But McNamara did shit the bed in not replacing, not making the defensive replacement that he had always made.
Even if they replace Buckner, the game's still going to be tied. It's just not going to be lost.
Yeah, right.
But it would have been lost because the Red Sox were going to lose. I mean, the reason the Cubs finally won the World Series is they found a team to play in the World Series that was damn near as cursed as they were, and that team didn't think they were going to win either.
Without that rain delay, I think the Cubs lose.
Yeah.
Without Hayward getting those guys together.
Yeah, and the thing is, everybody that got behind in that game kept coming back because the other team really didn't believe they were going to win.
And you could see Madden shitting the bed in the dugout. As they showed Madden, he looked like the most nervous guy in the history of baseball standing in that dugout and throwing Chapman out there. I don't know, what he pitched, like 3 1/3?
Yeah.
Like, that was just insane. So
yeah, and if you'd have put him in Tampa, he probably wouldn't have shit the bed. Because he wasn't a Cub. And to wear those little Cubby pajamas and play a Major League Baseball game, it's got to be humiliating anyways.
Now stop that. Those are beautiful uniforms, historically iconic. My God almighty. That's the most beautiful color of blue in the history of the world.
Uh-huh. All right, whatever. Do we want to do a Big Ten preview show Tuesday or Wednesday? All right.
Sure.
I'll
be there.
Want. Yeah, I was going to, but I figured why just go for one day? And I didn't want to drive an hour and a half to watch Iowa play Illinois. So I'm just going to wait till the NCAA tournament because I know Indiana won't be in that probably, especially the regional semifinals and regional finals. So
that would be a surprise.
If you want, Bobby Plump said we could come to his restaurant. He'll eat lunch with us today at the regional semifinals. Yeah.
I like that.
That would be cool.
Yeah, that sounds fun. I like Bobby a lot.
Yeah, good guy. And, we'll have to tell him to get the bluegill back on there.
Yeah, what's he doing? I can go catch him for him if he wants.
He said his tenderloin sandwich is the best in the world, though.
And it is delicious. They have great food. I love that place. It's kind of a converted house. That's one of my favorite places in Broad Ripple. So it's a good adult bar. Like you go to Plump's, and you're not going to be harassed by a bunch of 21-year-olds doing Jaeger bombs for 5 hours and then getting into fights.
Yeah, it's fun to watch the fights though. But it's best not to drink at those places, or you might find yourself as a 50, 60-year-old man in a fight there.
And then you get the pro move of downing your beer as quick as you can, and then walking up to the bar and saying that in the fight it spilled, and they'll pour you a fresh one for free.
There you go. All right, Kent, tell us where we can find your book and where we can find you.
You kidding? The book, of course, is Oops, The Art of Learning from Mistakes and Adventures. You can get it on Amazon. You just search Oops and Kent, and up it pops. You can get the audiobook, the ebook, and the hardcover book. I suggest you get all three.
All right, guys. Get all three, because Kent said so. And I'm sure the book is entertaining because he's made a lot of mistakes ever since I've known him, and it hadn't been that long. So, all right. We're going to go ahead. We're going to wrap it up. We'll be back Tuesday with a Big Ten preview special. So make sure you check back there so we can talk about how far Indiana is going to go on their quest for the Final Four. But for now, I didn't say which tournament either, Kent. But for now, for Kent Sterling, I'm Mike Goodpaster. You've been listening to The Grueling Truth, where the legends speak.